Hello, it's Claire from JH Coaching here today, and I wanted to talk to you today about your periods and specifically about whether or not it's a good idea to race when you're on your period. The reality is that we can't choose the date of the race. The date of the race is the date of the race. Whether or not that date happens to fall on our period is somewhat beyond our control, barring taking drugs, which I don't particularly advocate for various reasons. Does being on your period mean that you shouldn't race or you should just give up that race? My personal point of view and the overwhelming evidence suggests that absolutely not. So long as you're relatively fit and healthy, being on your period can actually be the best time to race for reasons that I'll go into a bit later on. Just to give you a couple of examples, Paula Radcliffe in 2002 broke the women's marathon record while she was suffering from period cramps. So clearly it didn't stop her. In fact, she ran her best. Equally, Uta Pippig back in 1996 won the Boston Marathon while she was on her period. My personal experience is that I have also managed to run pretty well while I've been on my period. Clearly, obviously, we've all done the training that we need to do for our key event. That's a key part of it. But being on your period shouldn't stop you from racing. And in fact, the evidence suggests that this could be the best time for you to race if you can overcome things like period cramps and obviously keeping yourself clean and tidy. Okay, let's start by looking at our hormones and our period cycle. So let's just do a little chart here. So this is day 1, and that is the day you start your period. This is around halfway through, about day 14. That's ovulation. Your egg is released, and day 28, there or thereabouts. Some people's cycles are longer, some people's cycles are not. Are shorter. So that's the end, I suppose. Right. Let's start with the good old female hormone estrogen. I'm going to label that with an O because we're British. So it's sort of steady for the first 7 days of your cycle, then it sort of climbs up to its peak just before day 14. It starts dropping as you ovulate, drops down, and then it has another sort of little peak here and drops down to more or less where it started at day 28. That's estrogen. Let's do progesterone. We'll make that blue, and we'll label that P. So that sort of, it does a tiny little dip here sort of, and then it starts climbing up, and it crosses here and it exceeds the estrogen here and then drops down. That's progesterone. And finally, we've got testosterone. And that starts here. I'll just do that. It's the same colour. So that is sort of more or less plateaued up to about here. And then it has a little bump there. And then it rises a little bit to finish around here. What does all this mean for us as we are training? Let's start with the final section here, which is days 14 to 28. From days 14 to 28, quite a lot of things are happening in your body because essentially your body is preparing to get pregnant and have a baby. Its focus is more on that than on running. So we've got to really work with our body in this phase because a few things are happening. Primarily what's happening is that your body's starting to favour protein as an energy source. And once you start to favour protein as an energy source, that means that recovery can be more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult, especially for harder sessions. And in training, what that means is that we do choose to train hard in this period, which we're likely to. It's a long period of time, 14 days in a training cycle. We need to think carefully about recovery, and specifically to, in that magic half hour after a hard session, make sure you get some protein in, because effectively you'll have used more than you might have done at other phases in your cycle. In addition to that, your blood plasma levels drop because it's redistributed to other parts of your body. You'll experience this by feeling bloated, or maybe getting a little bit of swelling in your legs. I know that's something I get. So that makes things harder because you feel more sluggish, but also what that means is that you're less likely to sweat, so your body is less able to manage your temperature. So if we're thinking about going out in the heat and training, we need to think about that carefully. It might mean that we need to wear cooler clothing than we normally would. Also, your blood sodium level drops. So while we need to think carefully about hydrating, it's really important at this time to make sure that we've got some salts in whatever hydration we're using, because we don't want to dilute it further. That's that phase. Women generally are fairly clear that this is not their best phase for training and racing. But we can race and we can train in this time period. We just need to think about things a little bit more carefully. Phase 2, days 7 to 14. This is when your estrogen is rising up. Your progesterone and testosterone are a bit, but mainly it's the estrogen that's rising up. At this time in our cycle, our body is preferring fat as its energy source. Now, a lot of people will spend a lot of time trying to train their body to prefer fat as their energy source. We tend to do this naturally as women at this time. What that means is long and slow rather than hard and fast tends to be easier in this phase. It's a 7-day period of time. This could be a good time for you to focus on endurance and get lots of longer, steady miles in, rather than trying to, hit the track and do some really fast, short reps. Doesn't preclude you from doing that, but this is when this will feel more natural and easier for you. Ovulation obviously is at day 14, as we've said. So that leaves us with the first 7 days from the day you have your period and throughout your period, give or take a few days, depending on how long your period usually is. And as you can see, this is the time when your hormones are at their lowest, all of them. It's a good time to train hard. Your body's favouring carbohydrates, so you can go back to your usual carbohydrates or snacks and things while you're training. And it's a time when you can put in some really good PBs if that's what you're looking for. And in actual fact, it is a good time for race if you can overcome some of the PMS issues that might be around for you at that time. In conclusion, being on your period, although it can be annoying and it can sometimes be something that makes you feel less enthusiastic, can actually be the best time for you to race. I hope you found that helpful. If you did find it helpful, do let me know in the comments below or by clicking on the like button. I have written a blog on this very subject, which is a little bit more detailed. You can check that out on our website at www.enduranceBikeandRun.com. And most of all, get out there, have fun and get racing wherever you are in your cycle.